What's up, everybody? GeauxBurns welcoming you to another installment of my Mafia III backstory series. You guys enjoyed the Lincoln Clay episode last week so much, I decided to do another episode. Plus, it was requested, so you're welcome. And obviously, we're going to cover Vito Scaletta. Now, in August, when the Mafia III reveal trailer came out, there were three things I was excited about. One was the setting in the late 60s. The other was the location. At the time, it was New Orleans. We didn't have the official name of the fictional city in Mafia III till about a month ago, which is obviously New Bordeaux. And the other thing I was extremely excited about seeing in the trailer was the return of Vito Scaletta, the protagonist from Mafia II. Because I was a huge Mafia II fan. Still play it, obviously. And I really wanted to know what happened to Vito at the end of that story. I mean, it ended on such a cliffhanger and a downer that you just wanted to keep playing, but the game was over and you're like, damn it, come on, we don't get any real closure. It's just a whole bunch of loose ends. But before I spoil the ending, I'm not going to do that, by the way, let us get to Vito Scaletta's backstory. By the way, speaking of spoilage, I'm going to keep that at a bare minimum, but there will be a little bit of spoiling here and there. Now, Vito Scaletta was born to a poor family in Sicily in the year 1925. The Scaletta family consists of their dad, Antonio Scaletta, Vito's mom, Maria Scaletta, Vito's older sister, Francesca Scaletta, and a few years after Vito was born, the Scaletta family decided to move to America, more specifically Empire Bay, in the hopes of finding a better life for themselves. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out that way because the Scaletta family still found themselves in poverty. In order to make ends meet, Vito's dad became a dock worker. It was very hard work, very low pay, and eventually his dad got into $2,000 debt with loan sharks before dying mysteriously while Vito was off fighting in World War II. But another important character in Vito Scaletta's life from an early age was his best friend, Joe Barbaro, who he met back in school. And they became fast friends, BFFs, and they were friends all the way through adulthood. And Joe plays a vital role throughout the story of Mafia II. Now, Vito's mom, Maria, never really liked Joe because she considered him to be a bad influence. In fact, at an early age, Vito got arrested in 1943. He had two options, either go to jail or enlist in the U.S. Army. He chose the latter, so he joined the United States Army, the 504th Parachute Infantry Regiment, and eventually he was part of Operation Husky, which eventually led to the liberation of his home country, Sicily. In 1944 or 45, a year or so later in World War II, Vito was shot in battle. He spent some time in a hospital, but then was sent home on leave for about a month. Upon returning to Empire Bay, he once again met up with Joe, who was now involved in organized crime, specifically with the Clemente crime family. Thanks to Joe and his connections, Vito was able to acquire forged discharge papers, which meant that he did not have to go back to the European or Pacific theater in World War II, thus ending his military career. For a short time in 1945, Vito was working for the Clemente crime family until he ended up getting arrested and sent off to prison. During this time, his mother Maria would pass away, and his older sister Francesca got married. During his 5-year prison sentence, Vito made some enemies, but at the same time, he made a very good friend in Leo, who was Frank Vinci's consigliere and ranking member of the Vinci crime family. Leo basically saved Vito's life while he was in prison and taught him a great deal over his 5-year prison sentence. In 1950, Vito was released to a whole different Empire Bay, which was alive and flourishing following the end of the Second World War. And naturally, Vito teamed up once again with Joe, who was now working for the Falcone crime family, and he started moving up into the ranks of the Falcone organization, and eventually, him and Joe became made men. Everything was going well for Vito until Don Falcone put a hit on his old friend Leo. Fortunately, Vito was able to rescue Leo just in time in order to get him safely out of Empire Bay before he was assassinated. From that moment on, things started to go south for Vito in Empire Bay. Ultimately, he was saved by his old friend and mentor Leo and sent to work for Sal Marcano down in New Bordeaux. Unlike Empire Bay, which at one time was under the control of 3 crime families, Clemente, Falcone, and Vinci, New Bordeaux was under the control of one family, Sal Marcano, aka Uncle Sal. Now, most of you already know that Vito Scaletta is going to become the leader of the rebel Italians in Mafia III, as well as one of Lincoln Clay's 3 lieutenants in the game, along with Cassandra, who's the leader of the Haitians, and Burke, who heads up the Irish mob. But what you may not know is what has been transpiring between Mafia II and Mafia III. And a lot of this information comes courtesy of the postcards that have been put out over the official Mafia III Facebook and Twitter pages. By the way, if I left anything out regarding Vito's backstory in Mafia 2 or between Mafia 2 and 3, that's not a major spoiler, and you probably know what I'm referring to several instances throughout the game. Feel free and leave anything else below in the comment section, but not those spoilers. Yes, I realize Mafia 2's been out since 2010, but at the same time, there's several people out there that have yet to play Mafia 2, and maybe one day they'll get a chance to, so why spoil it for them? So please be courteous to your fellow Mafia fans. Okay, so let's talk about the information that we've gotten decoded from these 4 postcards. Now, the postcards are sent from Vito to Leo over the year 1967, which takes place a year before the events in Mafia 3. One thing I did hear that I don't think was in the postcards is that apparently Vito once again got arrested and served jail time. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I heard. Anyways, let's talk about the postcards. 17 years have passed since the end of Mafia 2, obviously, and since then, Vito's been in New Bordeaux under Sal Marcano. Apparently, Vito is running a seafood restaurant on the waterfront that's obviously a mob front, and at the same time he's being cut out of the action by Uncle Sal. He hates Sal Marcano. He does not like him. He doesn't like living in New Bordeaux, and he would like to go back to Empire Bay. In fact, in the very first postcard, he tells Leo, just say the word and I will report back to Empire Bay. That's how badly he wants out of New Bordeaux, because he doesn't like it there, and he doesn't exactly like having Sal's head up his ass. Not literally, obviously. That's one thing I really like about the postcards, is it gives you an idea of where Vito is right now in 1967, having this issue with his boss, Sal Marcano, having to put up with him and having to live in a city he doesn't exactly like. Really does paint the picture of what we can expect from Vito in Mafia 3, a year later in 1968, when he ends up teaming with Lincoln Clay. So there is really no love lost between Vito and Sal Marcano. Now, before we wrap up, I want to have a little debate with you. And you can agree with me or you can disagree with me if you want. And this started with one of my Mafia 3 videos. I believe it was my breakdown of the One-Way Road trailer. Now, in the Mafia 3 reveal trailer back in August, this is what Vito looked like, which looks like an older version of himself from Mafia 2. And in the One-Way Road trailer, I never saw Vito except for in the official Mafia 3 art. But some of you suggested that Vito was in fact in the One-Way Road trailer, which is the guy on the right. And this is where your opinion comes in. So feel free and leave it below in the comments section. Is the guy on the right Vito Scaletta? I disagree. For one thing, I played the hell out of Mafia 2, and once again, I'm replaying it just for fun and for video, obviously. And he doesn't look like Vito Scaletta. For one thing, the reveal version of Vito Scaletta has gray hair on the left side. On the right side, look at his sideburn. It's clearly black, not gray. Now, I realize in the timeline, Vito Scaletta is 43 years old, I think. Technically, Vito could still have black hair, but at the same time, people get gray hair at different ages. Some people get it in their 20s, some in their 50s or 60s. And to be honest, these two faces look nothing alike. For one thing, look at the lips. Vito's lips look more pronounced, not as thin as the guy on the right. And the guy on the right has a different looking scar on his left cheek than Vito's traditional scar that starts right under his mouth and then goes across his chin. That is what Vito is supposed to look like on the left side. And the guy on the right side doesn't look like Vito. Now, I could be completely wrong. The guy on the right could actually be what Vito officially looks like in Mafia 3. If that's the case, I just don't see it, Hanger 13. I really don't. And I don't know why they would go to such a dramatic change in the character look from what Vito looked like in the reveal trailer, which looks more like Vito in Mafia 2, to this other guy. I mean, he could be a friend of Leo's, he could be an associate, or he could be one of Sal Marcano's henchmen. I don't know who this guy is, and I still don't believe that he's actually what Vito is going to look like when Mafia 3 comes out on October 7th to Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and PC.